This is a production of the Hardway HQ Podcasting Network. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Unfiltered here, HardwayHQ.com, via the Hardway HQ Podcasting Network. You can find this podcast through iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, the whole gamut of podcasting applications, as well as the aforementioned HardwayHQ.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at Hardway HQ, Instagram at the Hardway HQs if there's any other one. Advertising concerns, hate mail, John at HardwayHQ.com. That's Jon at, don't actually write at, use the A with the circles around it. Cool gimmick, cool shtick, cool deal, baby. John at HardwayHQ.com. I'm Jon Harder here in the beautiful, luxurious Hardway HQ studios, welcoming you to another edition of Unfiltered. And on this episode, I kind of want to talk about something different, something I never really go into. And it's, I don't want to say conspiracy theories, but something that's a little auspicious. Over the past couple months, I've been really paying attention to the second coming of many respects of one former NBA number one draft pick, Kwame Brown. Stephen A. Smith goes up. But Kwame Brown, I had to do that. I'm going to get heat. But Kwame Brown is one of those guys that, has been unfairly, in my opinion, blasted through the media, especially over the past 20 years. I mean, being a kid who comes in number one draft, you go all the way through the system, and, for 20 years, they've repeatedly called this guy the biggest number one bust in history of the NBA, and they bashed him, talk about his work ethic and all that jazz, and you hear it, and you listen to it. Well, Kwame Brown had enough after being blasted by the All the Smoke podcast of former NBA players Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, and overused with Stephen A. Smith. So Kwame finally had enough and started standing up for himself. And the one main topic of discussion that I never heard of before this, and I really want to discuss it, was Stephen A. Smith going to college campuses complaining about Kwame Brown and the fact that he was the reason in many circumstances that the NBA went for the one and done kind of philosophy with basketball players that had to go into the draft year to do 1 year of college before going into the pros. And everyone likes to go and say Kwame Brown is the reason for that. And to be honest, people that want to go and say he's a bust, I mean, do people remember Michael Olowokandi from Los Angeles? Do they remember Anthony Bennett, who I don't believe ever even played a game in the NBA? I mean, those two right off the top of my head are bigger number one busts than Kwame Brown. Kwame Brown wasn't a bust. If you look at it, and he says it, and when you really take a step back, forget the play on the court. Anybody that was a bust does not last 12 years in the league. He made $64 million in the league, and his statistics, they kind of average up to an average NBA center now, because the era of the center, the old school center, it's kind of gone passé for everybody having to really avoid going down low and just using the jump shot and the three-point game, which is basically second hand now. He averaged 6.6 points a game, 5.5 total rebounds a game. And here's the big stat. For a bust, 22 minutes a game, averaged over 607 games, his NBA career. Combining with injuries, all that stuff, that's not a bust. Averaging 22 minutes a game, I think if you're a bust, you'd be out of the league in 3-4 years, and you'd only average like 7-8 minutes a game. Kwame averaged 22 minutes a game. And, I'm looking at all of these statistics, and the one and done rule in particular is something that really gets at me, because we all know Carmelo Anthony wound up doing that. He did the one and done. He went to Syracuse for a year, and then wound up coming into the NBA, being a well-regarded phenom. But who are the players? I mean, here in the one and done rule, Kwame being the reason for it, there has been a mass amount of players that have entered from high school after Kwame Brown to make big money contracts right off the bat. And what I have here, I have a piece of paper. I'm going to say all the names that went in the first round after Kwame Brown over the next 5 years before that rule was implemented. I'm going to read some of the names here. Literally, the next pick in the draft, the first time ever in NBA history, 2 high school players went 1-2. Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry, Dzagana Diop, In 2002, Amari Stoudemire. In 2003, the Golden Child, LeBron James, Travis Outlaw, and Kendrick Big Baby Perkin. In 04, this is the big one, where I think people don't really touch upon this. Sean Livingston went number 4, and Livingston took almost 10 years to develop into a solid role player. I mean, he started in Brooklyn, got a really resurgence in Brooklyn, went to Golden State, won a ring. Robert Swift, Sebastian Telfair, what a name from the past, Al Jefferson, Josh Smith, and Mr. J.R. Smith. And those guys went from 12 to 17. 14 was picked by a regular college guy. 12, 13, 15 through 17. First round guys. And then 2005, Martell Webster, Andrew Bynum, who's supposed to be the big time center of the future, and Gerald Green. If you look at that list, just by looking at it, there's only a few names on here that had a very long career in the stats of Kwame Brown. Obviously LeBron, obviously Amari Stoudemire, Big Baby Perkins, Sean Livingston, J.R. Smith, Gerald Green. But they like to use the Kwame Brown excuse as the reason why that one and done rule is in play. And that, to me, is media bias. And if you really want to get down to, and he's talked about it a lot, but if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty of everything, look what he had in Washington to deal with. I mean, first things first, you got a 38-year-old Michael Jordan, first of 2 seasons in Washington to play 2 more years in the league. I mean, whatever Michael says, if Michael don't like you, he's going to blast you. The media, who adores Michael Jordan, is going to blast you. Doug Collins, who's a Michael Jordan acolyte in many senses, same thing. Then you go to L.A., you go to the Lakers. You got Kobe. And if Kobe's going to talk trash about you, Kobe's a media darling, got away with stuff in 03, which I'm still amazed to this day never got really discussed. Kobe says he doesn't like you, they're going to get on you. And then over the years, just that stigma. And then you have Stephen A. Smith repeatedly going after Kwame Brown. Jalen Rose defended him. That's a clip that's been proven, but he kept going after him. And then the college campuses thing, blaming Kwame Brown for the one and done rule, basically being implied. I find it to be completely unfair. And Kwame's right when it comes to the whole circumstance with the NCAA. They were losing money with guys going directly to the draft, so you had to implement that rule to get the people in college to get a year out of them, to make the money deal between the NCAA and NBA happen. And now look with the NCAA, they're in a little bit of trouble because those players are about to get paid in all different forms of sports. So that's wild. If Kwame Brown has proven nothing or something over the past months, it's the media exposure. It's that drama that the NBA, that all sports, all forms of entertainment, if you're not part of what Kwame likes to call the go along to get along gang, I mean, if you're part of that, you're going to be protected. If you're not, and you do things on your own, you're going to get it. And Kwame's got it for 20 years, and now that he's coming out, they throw the whole crazy excuse. Look what they did to Dave Chappelle back in 04 when he signed that $50 million contract. I think might have been a little more with Comedy Central. He freaked out because all the things, the pressure and stuff, and he left, and they called him crazy, a drug addict, all that stuff. They're trying to do the same thing with Kwame, and they're trying to silence him. And look what the stuff that Kwame's done. I mean, he's gone after Stephen A. rightfully. They dedicated a video to him on ESPN. More likes and dislikes. 30,000 likes to 34,000 dislikes. Stephen A. Smith has done that, and he looked like a fool doing that personally. Also, you had All the Smoke podcast still trying to go at him. You had various YouTube personalities going at him. But he stands tall and he stands true for himself. Was he the greatest NBA player of all time? No, he wasn't. But a bust doesn't last in the league 10, 12 years. You don't make $64 million. It's one of these things where I think people, whether on YouTube or not, need to become more cognizant of the fact of what the mainstream media, and I've said this on various other unfiltered that nobody's listened to, but I say this enough, that the media, the mainstream media, they push out an agenda, and a lot of people who aren't quick to the jive, who don't understand that, they're going to pay attention to what they have to say and take it as fact without doing the research. And Kwame Brown has done a lot trying to expose that and trying to bring up the culture in the African American community, which I literally knew nothing about, and I'm learning from him. Man's a smart man. I mean, having Judge Joe Brown on his show, having old basketball players like Craig Hodges on the show, former Jordan, not disciple, but teammate in Chicago. It's unbelievable what he's doing. And this literally right here, I got the notes right here. Everything that Kwame's talking about, he's speaking truth. And I think a lot of people need to expose him more. Is the language graphic? Oh, hell yeah. And I think it's hysterical, but he's funny as hell. He roasts people, but he also speaks facts. And just looking at the narrative here, looking at the money he's made, looking at the people who have entered the draft after him and who made a career similar to the high school entering thing. Guys are getting paid early but don't last in the league long. Kwame has above and beyond performed that. So I think people need to open their eyes and need to see that this man's speaking truth and that there is an agenda against him and they're trying to use him as a scapegoat and he's not taking it anymore. He's mad as hell and he won't take it anymore. I have nothing. But I want to say mad respect to Kwame Brown, and as a middle-aged white guy from South River who could barely shoot a jump shot even in his backyard now, respect to you, sir, and you speak the truth. But the one and done philosophy for Kwame Brown, the reason why they say it was because of him. It's so full of crap. There's a bigger, wide open conspiracy to that. So I just wanted to open up and say Kwame's spot on about it. Go along, get along game. And I'll tell you this, Kwame, you got to find a way to trademark jump up and down on your ass like a trampoline, because you got to do that. Because that's a money quote, and if anyone in wrestling said it, that'll be used for years. So Kwame, trademark it. But this is Unfiltered. I wanted to talk about this and just the intrigue of the Kwame Brown conspiracy in many senses. It's unfair and unjust, and he seems on all accounts a genuine dude. So Kwame Brown, unfairly mistreated. Screw the NBA, man. Bring back the mid-range game. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Unfiltered. I'm Jon Harder. HardwayHQ.com.